Expo in Niagara Falls, New York. And this is Fish Hawk Live here on the floor of the show. We got some great captains here with us this evening. We got Captain Pete Alex on the end.
Hi,
Good
Chris.
evening, Pete. We got
Good
Captain
evening.
Craig Sleeman right here in the middle.
Hello there.
And we got Captain Ross Robertson right here.
Hello.
We're going to be passing some mics around, little musical microphones tonight, but we're going to talk a little Lake Erie walleye fishing, and we got three of the best here with us tonight. First of all, can you guys we'll start with Pete since he's got the mic down at the end, talk about your charter and what you do, where you fish, and go from there.
Captain Pete Alex, the port of Erie, Pennsylvania, and I've been a charter boat guy since 1988. So I've been chasing walleyes professionally ever since then, primarily out of the port of Erie, PA.
Awesome. And I'm Craig Sleeman. We run usually out of Cattaraugus Creek or Silver Creek area. Been walleye fishing since Ross taught me back in 2007, we talked about that today for a little bit. And we actually have a little competitive team, Midnight Express. We're out in Buffalo area, Eastern Basin of Lake Erie.
Ross Robertson. I own Big Water Fishing. We have a multi-boat guide service, primarily fishing the western and central basins. I also have a media company, so we do a podcast just like this and YouTube videos and all that good stuff, and working with manufacturers like Fish USA and a bunch of others to design products so you guys can catch more fish.
There you go. So guys, what's you guys chomping at the bit right now? It's February, and I know Lake Erie's been covered with ice this winter, which is interesting. What do you see how that may impact fishing for you guys this spring with the lake? I mean, I don't live on it, but I heard it was totally covered with ice this winter.
Well, time will tell. We've had this happen before, similar ice conditions, and we had very big warm-ups in March, which disintegrated it quickly. So we all thought, boy, we're going to be fishing late. The walleye are going to arrive to our port late. They're going to be to your area of the lake late, but we had these crazy warm Marches, and we were back to normal as far as the timing of the walleyes.
I'm going to hold that mic down.
Yeah, I think, right now, that ice is, slowed these walleyes down a little bit, which is actually probably good for them. They've been on a tear these last few winters. I think it's gonna help. A lot of guys got out and actually did some ice fishing finally. You've been out, quite often, and even guys up on the Eastern Basin have been ice fishing. So it's kind of nice to spread it out. But yeah, we're all 100% chomping at the bit. It's been a great time for me because I don't ice fish that often. So I'm preparing. I'm getting ready for that. That May opener. We open up on May 1st up in New York, and really looking forward to it.
This may not be a popular opinion, especially with this crowd, but ice fishing is probably my favorite way to catch them.
Okay.
And it's what I've been doing the last 20-some days. So, but kind of like you guys said, I don't get too bent out of shape with it because I've been on 18 inches ice, 12 miles offshore, and 3 days later you see boats floating around. So Mother Nature's powerful.
I got a question for Ross. How has the ice fishing been so far compared to other years where we had similar ice conditions? Is it good fishing, great fishing, so-so fishing? I know some people that have went from my area, traveled up to your world, and went ice fishing, and it was tough. It was tough fishing.
I would say the fish were a little more fickle, but I think that with ice fishing, the thing that maybe if you don't do it, it's hard to understand a little bit. But on our boats, we go where the fish are at, right?
But how could it be fickle with like 160 million walleyes in your neighborhood?
Well, so that's where I'm going. So you don't necessarily fish on Lake Erie or the Great Lakes where you want to fish. You go where you can come home at night. And so I'm not necessarily fishing over 160 million fish. I'm like, oh, thick ice, nobody here? Sure. And, but the fish have been, even when there's large groups of them, they've been like some of the underwater, videography stuff, or even, with Mega Live and stuff like that. You watch these and you're just like, really? Like Craig went pass up for his cheesecake, and that's kind of what it looks like doing. But there were just windows, and they just, but look at like us, right? So you're out there and you're running a 20 rod spread, and you're like, yeah, I caught 36 fish in an hour or two. Like, well, how many fish told you kiss off? Like, I mean, when you got that wide, 200 feet wide or whatever you're going through, or 150 feet wide, and you're going 2.5 miles an hour, and you're like, I just went 5 miles, 200 feet wide. So we feel like rock stars because we caught 30-some fish in a few hours, because that's reeling. But how many fish that went by were like, nah, brah, no. And ice fishing, you're much more limited, to what you can do moving around. And even a motivated guy like me, when it's 20 degrees out and the wind's blowing 30 miles an hour, you don't move as quickly, So it's a different animal.
Love it.
It's good. So you brought it up, Craig, a little while ago that and I fished with you last year, and you're like, hey, I learned how to fish this lake from Ross. And you had some good stories about that. And I'm like, I got to share that. I mean, because Ross, he needs his ego coddled a little bit. There's times where he really gets down on himself. So I'm like, I definitely got to talk to Ross about that. So share with us a couple of stories, your kind of genesis into Lake Erie walleye fishing.
Do I got to tell them the whole story or just a little shortened version of the
You
story?
can tell us
No,
the
I'm just kidding.
So, yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm going to follow up because he didn't argue with my version of it when we just gave a little walleye clinic
Okay.
over here. But
No,
go
I
ahead.
did not.
Craig, pop it.
So the story goes, back in 2007, I think we're putting a date on ourselves here, but I said, Ross, we would like to learn how to walleye fish. And Ross, being the educator that he is, and I'm giving him props because he does need a little pick me up every once in a while. Ross said, yeah, no problem, come on out. And my twin brother and I spent 2 days with Ross learning how to catch walleyes. And the cool thing is, we played monkey see, monkey do for the first 4 hours. And I said, Ross, it's been 4 hours. We've not caught a single walleye. Do I get my money back, or how's it supposed to work? He's like, oh, you guys were here to catch fish. I thought you wanted just to learn how to catch them. So
He said to me, we don't know about this crankbait deal.
I want to learn how to run a reef run.
Okay.
Okay.
So we went and fished some chalky water,
We did.
and we learned that. And I said, oh, you want to go catch them now? And then
And then after 4 hours of drowning reef runners with no avail, Ross said, all right, I'm going to take you where I saw the water this morning.
we don't need to tell him where that's at.
I
either.
understand.
Okay.
Where the water was, we went down to the bait shop. He looked at the satellite and said, this is where the water's going to be. This is where we're going to go. And I said, I trust you. And so from then on out, it was inline harnesses with night crawlers, and it was an 8 to 9 pound beatdown for at least 4 hours. We might have caught 30 fish, and we did some videotaping to actually, try to retain some of this information. And one of my kids at school put together this promo video and gave it to Ross.
They were that guy, but
We were that guy. But we were on Ross's website for probably 7 years. So I have a little bit of claim to fame as we showed Ross how to reel in fish. And, we taught him a few things that day, I think. How to be goofy, how to be twins. But no, in all seriousness, that's how it started. And, to now be sitting next to Ross and being able to share a seminar and, bounce things off of him. It's an honor to be here. But at the same time, we have to continue to spread this wealth of information, right? Teaching and educating others, right? The way that we have found because of our experience on the water is going to continue to pass that torch. And I think this is what a seminar like this does. This is what, a weekend like this is going to do for our industry, is continue to educate so people have fun and can catch more fish, for sure.
Well, when I started doing those educational trips, literally I was winning a bunch of tournaments. The money wasn't like the thing then, right? But it was a little ego, trying to build your business, all the different things that you're doing, and I was a much younger man. And Al Linder, literally, because I did a lot of stuff within fish when about the time they exited, and Al literally said to me, he's like, so do you want to make a living in this, or do you want to feel good about things? And I'm like, he's like, education is where this is at. And so we started doing those educational trips like we did with you, and it's a whole different crowd, it's a different deal. And I kind of thought hey, this is maybe short-sighted, but here I am almost 30 years later, and I realized Al wasn't wrong. Al's usually right. When in doubt with walleyes, Al usually is right.
Well, you guys are teaching the walleye school, right? All of you?
Yes.
All right. So tell me about what message are you guys bringing to the school? I think each one of you kind of has the special thing that you do, your own kind of special sauce. So when you guys are going to be in there this weekend, what's something that you're looking forward to, Pete, sharing with the people that are at the school?
Well, I had my class already, and we talked about catching walleye in the deeper water, right? A variety of methods, not just one method. So we talked about mono rod fishing with deep divers. And then we went into lead core and actually jet divers, touched on worm harnesses a little bit, spoons and body baits. But it was primarily that deeper water offshore fishing that occurs out of Erie, PA, and then down towards your world, right? So, and the goal was for everybody to go in there and pick up at least 1, 2, or 3 things that will make them a better angler. And my angle was not just the physical tactics. We just didn't talk about what colors, you got to use dipsy divers. It was really more of that mental aspect, because I think the mental part is equally as important as the physical part. You can have all the great tools you want, nicest boats, right? And if you don't make the right decisions or don't start in the right spots or you're fishing too high or too low in the water column, you're missing the boat. And Joe Blow that's fishing mentally with junky equipment is going to probably whoop your butt. So the mental aspect is equally as important as that physical aspect, which is the tools and the gadgets and all the lures. So that was my primary focus, to get people to think, be positive, and be better anglers from the mental side, make good decisions, not just have the right tools and come here and buy the latest and greatest things. It was like, make those work for you, so think about that. So that was my gig for the most part. And then we talked about the product called Strike Assist. Calvin was with me, so we had a lot of cool underwater videos, strike footage videos, using the Strike Assist product. And, it was eye-opening for a lot of people to see these underwater videos. The same walleye hitting the same bait 5 times, seeing how they attack. Some come in and hit worm harnesses like a steelhead, Mach 9, and some would just lazily come up at it, and we call them nippers. They would just nip, nip, nip. But there's a lot more bites going on below the water that we don't see versus the ones that we can see. So we opened a lot of eyes from that angle, the underwater view of fish attacks, fish bites, things like that. So a little different beat down to, I think, what these guys did for the people. I just want to say it's good to be here with Ross. The last notable guy fished with Babe Winkleman back in the 90s. So it's good to be here with Ross. I feel like a comparable thing. Do you know who Babe Winkleman is?
I do.
Attaboy.
I actually filmed a show with him when I was like 14.
Really?
Yeah.
I was like late 20s, I think, or 30s. It's like 1994.
Babe's got into some troubles in between here and there, but that's not for
another day. No, I think the nice thing too, you guys touched on the deep water and the physical and the mental, and I think what we were trying to bring today was what are the little things you can do to catch bigger fish, and sometimes it's leaving fish, and just having that confidence that if I leave this 50 boat pack that's all whaling 4 and 7 pound, how do I catch that 9 or 10 pounder? What do I have to do differently? So I think just having a plan for that, and also other things than lure color, other things than deep divers. There's pre-trip planning, there's water clarity, there's temperature, there's currents, there's apps for this stuff now, right? So utilizing our technology, utilizing our high-speed graphing, I think that's an advantage in not being afraid to confidently trust yourself that when you see that it's right, it's time to go fishing. Monkey see, monkey do is no longer just because everybody's out and all the nets are flying in one area doesn't mean that you're going to go do the same thing. You've got to be there and do it, your way or adjust and kind of develop your own program. So I think the little things is what we're working on, and we've got 2 tomorrow. Ross and I have one on deep water trolling, which we're going to talk a lot about the fish hawk and some of the new stuff that's out there. And I've got another one on some of the new technology forward-facing sonar. So we're going to jump into that as well.
I can, having done hundreds of sport shows through the years, I try to do stuff, and sometimes the show promoters kind of tell you what they want to do, but try to do something that not everybody else is doing, and if we are, we're taking a different take on it. Because I think the biggest thing is, it's like we talked about in our deal, it's like, I can't teach you how to jig fish in here, standing here. I can give you some principles things, but you got to do it. Where a lot of the trolling and the different philosophies that we talked about are things that I think can make you a better fisherman by just listening to it, and if you just try to implement it. And so we focus on different things, because a lot of these things, guys get really salesy. They're trying to push things. I mean, that's part of this deal a little bit. But I think if you focus on the things that people don't realize make a difference in catching fish, like we didn't talk about, like the net handle. Guys, like how many guys have lost fish binding and they got a 3-foot handle on their net? Like every day I probably get 1 or 2 fish that would have gotten off if somebody had a little junky short net. And again, those are the controllables. Like so many of these guys are like, what color lure? And it's like, yeah, that matters, but there's like 10 things in front. And that's what we try to focus in. These are things that people can actually implement, because there's nothing worse than sitting in those seminars and you see people like, hey, I'm never buying that fancy, gadget. I'm never buying this or that. And we talk about, current technology. We talked about the fish hawk. I literally said in there, I said, how many of you guys own crankbaits, and how many do you own custom painted crankbaits? And these guys are all like, I'm like, Sunday's church day, boys. Don't lie to me. And they start thinking about, hey, you got $20 crankbaits, $15 custom painted crankbaits, and how many do you own? And then they say, well, because I'm not going to buy a fish hawk. I'm like, you guys are going to guess all day where your stuff is at and what's going on. for these things that sit in a box that you don't use after one trip because somebody lied to you that that's the hot lure, or it's not anymore. So we're talking about like the gear that you really need to have that you're using every day. Like, don't have junky rain gear and get a fish hog. Like, don't skimp on either one of those things because you're going to need it all the time. So those are, to me, the things that matter. But sometimes with people that don't fish as much as we do, they want to focus on what they think is a quick fix. And it's usually not a quick fix, but 1 in 20 days.
Pete, you brought it up a little while ago, and it's something that when I hear you speak in a lot of places, you talk about a lot, which is making adjustments. I think that's one of the things if you ask somebody like what makes Pete Alex who Pete Alex is, it's like, well, he knows when to make an adjustment and he knows where to go when that adjustment gets made. And you brought that up. That was something that you wanted people to get from your classes this weekend. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like, when do you make an adjustment when you're out there, and how do you know? I know the answer is going to be experience, but like, how does someone who's new try to implement that into their game where it's like, all right, things aren't going the way I want. When do I make an adjustment, and what do I do from there?
Well, good question. Like, I'll give you an example. One, if we're trolling, and you've been catching fish periodically on your troll, and you've gone at least 10 or 12 minutes without a bite, right? To me, that's a trigger point. What's that mean? It means time to turn around. I'm not going to troll another 30 minutes and go biteless. Now I got 45 minutes in the wrong direction. Now I got to turn around and troll 45 minutes back. So how much time is that, Chris?
It's over an hour.
Over an hour. So now I just wasted an hour and a half because I should have turned a long time ago. So that was one of the examples I gave him. So I have a 10-minute rule when trolling. If you don't get a bite for 10 minutes, you probably should turn around. Unless your buddy in front of you is catching fish and you're trolling to your buddy. But that's an adjustment, right? When the bite dies in the morning, typically we start with a morning spread of lures, typically high vis stuff, right? White backs, glows, whatever. Things fish can see. When that bite starts to fizzle, the fish will tell you, right? You're still seeing them. You see nets moving. That's a trigger point for me. It's telling me time to get my morning baits out of the water and go to the late morning bites, right? Change lures. Same with the fish. If our outside board line are starting to slow down, something happened. Either the colors are wrong or the fish might have dropped in the water column a little bit. Again, pull aside, make the adjustment, drop aside deeper, and see what happens. Okay?
Ross, you got anything on that?
Yeah, it's really easy that question's really easy to answer, but it's really not easy to understand because, experience comes with that stuff. And let's be honest, if any captain's being honest, things happen on accident sometimes. Like, you have a guy stop in front of you because he's like, hey, man, watch your video. And then you turn hard so you don't tangle because he doesn't realize you're going to. And you start catching him on the fast side. And you're like, maybe we should go a little faster, boys. You know what I mean? Like, that's the real things that happen. So I tried to make changes, but micro changes. Like, I think part of the problem is like, hey, I don't like where I live, so let's move to California. And it's like, maybe you just need to change neighborhoods. Sometimes it's little things, and I think people try to course correct too much. And maybe it's just like changing one rod on the inside, just little things, speed adjustments. I mean, it sometimes doesn't have to be huge.
Pete got a good idea. I saw him.
Yeah.
You're going to California?
So
Sure.
A lot of guys call me a professional dart thrower, okay, on the water. They're like, how do you know the whole fleet's over here today, or the fish have been here? How do you know all of a sudden you just ran 5 miles past everybody and went to the northwest? You threw the dart, right? So they call me a professional dart thrower. And a lot is to do with experience, but I use the force a lot, Chris. It's that force.
You're like a Jedi?
Sorta.
Yeah.
It's like a bit of a Jedi.
Jedis probably pay better than Captain,
So
but I hear you.
I've been called Jedi Pete before.
Oh.
Okay, but
I've heard a couple names. That wasn't one of them, but I'm with you.
you've been hanging around with the wrong guys. Okay, so seriously, but part of it is the gut. You can't. You should go with the gut many times. A lot of times, at the end of the day, how many times have we all said, "I knew I should have went left," or "I knew I should have went further today," because you didn't go with your gut. Something inside you said, I know everybody's been fishing here. It's been good, but there's been a weather change. We're in a big high pressure system. I think the fish are going to be moving today, right? The guy with the force and the gut goes past everybody where they've been fishing for 5 days, goes past everybody, sets up 2 miles, and is the hero that day, right? And then everybody wants to know, are you getting them out there? Yes. And where's the fleet do? You go out there. And you seldom get an attaboy from your peeps, except the good guys, for helping them. True story.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, and I would say too, I think that sometimes people take information, we were talking about this in our school, and I get people that climb onto my boat and they're telling the guys that were in the other boat, like, oh, we caught him on chartreuse, or we caught him on, and my guys look at me and they're like, were you? I'm like, no, I don't. The telephone game, the miscommunication, but also I think I have a certain style that I fish that I'm comfortable with, and I think some people, like maybe your boat is set up differently or you don't have the gear. And so when you try to fish somebody else's program when you don't have a lot of experience or a lot of equipment or comfort with it, sometimes that's not a good thing, and somebody could fish differently. Like Craig, you mentioned, like I'm, and it's probably because you're kind of mentor with our boy Big Head,
Yeah.
or myself. Like we fish slower than a lot of people. I tend to be on smaller pods of fish away from everyone and grind through them, and not power fish in a bigger group of fish. And that's, you can't do one method on the other. Does that make sense? Like, it doesn't work as well.
Yeah,
to
that
me.
question came up, is like, are you a crankbait fisherman or a worm fisherman? Well, you better be both, because one day they may not one or the other. So, but I also feel that it's a confidence thing, and I feel like you have to fish to your strength. You know, if I can read my boards in this situation with, you know, I'm a much better inline weight program fisherman than I am a lead core fisherman. I just read the boards better, you know, and people talk about, well, can you read the flags? I watch those boards in my sleep. Like, I can wake up thinking about what that board looked like, and it could be just the fact that it's got a different bubble coming off of it, and I know that, you know, a fish is sniffing on it, or, you know, like Pete was saying, the underwater stuff, you know, sometimes they're telling us something that maybe they don't want at all. Maybe they're just nipping, you know, and I can tell when a board goes back that they're not getting the whole thing, so we'll have to feed them, or, you know, different parts and pieces of that program all come together in a puzzle at the end of the day, and eventually it might make sense. But I still think, you know, going left instead of right, going right instead of left, that all comes with experience. But trusting your gut, yes, but trying something new, and when it works, it was a good idea. When it doesn't, go back and figure out why. You know, and I think a no is the wrong answer. Lance always told me, no can be the right answer also.
Well,
you know,
people try to predetermine what they're going to do. And you remember there was a guy in our walleye class here just a little bit. He goes, so what lure are you going to be using? And I'm like, you know, you can't say what you're really thinking, or anybody that knows me. But I'm like, so I said to him, I'm going to give you an analogy. I'm like, you ever work on stuff? You got tools? And the guy's like shaking his head. I go, so screwdriver or ratchet? And, you know, the guy looks at me and I go, I use whatever I need. When I need a Phillips, I use a Phillips. When I need, and I'm comfortable enough, obviously that's an advantage of what I do because I do it for a living, but hopefully that's what all these people do too. And we have enough, we're in Lake Erie, you know, primarily, so it's like we have more opportunities than if you were in Lake Winnebago or something, but not being afraid to use different tools based on, and not predetermining, I'm going to go catch them on spoons because I saw a report or because Pete's catching them on spoons. Maybe you're not set up to do that.
So we do have a comment on here. Got a couple different comments, good feedback from some people, but this just came up, and I think this is really a good question, especially with the two guys I have sitting right there, and maybe not quite so much you, but maybe you two.
Oh, wow.
But the guy says, come on, Craig, get on board with the lead core. I know he's a lead core guy, and I know you're not a lead core guy.
I'll give him a public invitation that he can come up to Erie and I'll teach him the lead core basics on the Vision Quest if he prefers. And now he'll be a more versatile angler, but the lead core is a deadly way, and stealth core lead core, of course, from Fish USA is the best lead core. But lead core is a great way to catch fish. I mean, I've been using it forever, and back to the tools, you know, having a variety of tools, it's definitely an arrow to keep in that quiver and learn how to use it. A very effective way to catch fish. So why haven't you used lead core, Craig?
Well, yeah, I want people to give me your spiel, Craig. I love it. Go ahead.
my spiel is I tangle a lot, number one.
Wow. Now the truth is coming out.
Number two, you know, personal level, and Pete would know Bob Henton from back in the day. Pete would always whoop Bob on his lead core late summer, and Bob would always say, just run your spinners, we'll catch them just the same, but we never did. And there is something to be said about the right tools for the trade when those fish are down there and, it's crystal clear blue water like we fish, and that undulation of that lead core, just does its thing. You can't beat it. There is something to be said about the lead core. The problem is it takes forever. And I am the worst. I am the ADHD. Okay, now I self-proclaim, listen, I didn't take my Adderall, I've been not diagnosed. I'm a self-diagnosed ADHD fisherman, so I like quick. And I want to be efficient. So in tournaments, for me, it wasn't as efficient for me to put out 300 feet of lead core compared to my 120 feet with my 3-ounce inline, right? So, but at the same time, again, they were catching the daylights out of them. We're over there, screwing the pooch.
So you didn't think I would use lead core?
No, I know where those guys stand.
I'm going to learn.
Well,
I'm taking them up on this, by the
so
way. You might have to come up and experience this.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this to brag, but just to put this in perspective, I have 74 TR200 Shimano lead core reels. And
so now we know where he stands.
And so, and some of them are from like 99,
Yeah.
and I keep hearing every year that they may be phasing that reel out, and it's not like as nice as a Dakota or whatever, but that, like, they just work really well for me. And when that is on, and people are like, why would you have so many? I'm like, when they're on 6 colors, I want 6 of them out. When they're on 7 colors and they're like, oh, it's about the same, you let a little backing, I'm like, when they're on it, it's just like putting a crankbait back 50 feet and trying to monkey around. So
I would like to know, like, how trolling like 1.5 miles an hour and ADHD, how's that jive? Because I know when I have to troll slow for Lakers and the occasional worm harness use, and I got to go 1.7, 1.8, it is very hard, man, to
I think
do
there's
when
a
you're used to
prescription.
2.3 to 2.7. So why don't you tell us how that how do you control that desire to want to keep going faster when you're going worm speed or pulling inlines?
I think it's boat snacks. So if you've got a really good, wife, girlfriend at home, like Jess always takes care of my boat snacks. Like you should see the boat snacks I got for boot snacks right now, right? So as long as you've got something to cure that need, in that case, that fix my jaw, either talking or eating, like I can get away with it. But you got to have good boat snacks.
And Fresca.
And lots of friends.
Fresca. I went fishing with him in July, and I came home and I've been drinking Fresca since July. So he put me on Fresca this summer. So, yeah, just like Judge Smales. How about a Fresca? Same thing. So, Craig, one of the things that you talked about a little bit earlier, though, was, being able, and this is something that Ross does a lot, and Pete, I don't know if you do this as much just because of how you fish for walleyes, but like knowing a lot of different ways and having a lot of different tools in your toolbox and a lot of different ways to put those walleyes in your cooler. And, this summer when I was with Craig, we went out in one day and we were, pulling those inline weights with worm harnesses, and then we were pulling stick baits, and then we were pulling spoons, and then we were doing bottom bouncers, and then we were hitting them with live scope and dropping jigs on their heads, like all in the same day. And you were trying to kind of figure out how to catch those bigger ones. We were pre-fishing a tournament, trying to figure out cracking the code on the big ones, because like you said earlier, we were trying to get away from everybody else where everybody was filling their boats with 22 inchers, and you're like, I need 28s and 29s. Just talk about having all those tools in your tool belt.
Yeah, I think, and Ross, we talked about it today in our seminar, was, having the right tool for the trade. When those fish are deep, when we're running lead core or dipsies, there is an advantage to having an entire box of tricks, because like you said, you put out a morning spread and they ate on it till 9 o'clock, and then the sun got high, and all of a sudden you can't get it eat again. So then what? You just quit and say, I'm done? Like, as a tournament angler, you have to continue to develop that, that need for those larger fish. And without those tools or experimenting and doing something different with those tools, you're always going to be vanilla, right? And so with that, from, watching Pete, watching Ross, listening to other guys, I think it's an advantage to go on someone else's boat. I know Ross doesn't promote that because his best stuff's always the best, but I even learned how to tie a knot from a bass guy.
I just don't want to fish with you.
I just said that, yeah. I learned how to tie a different loop knot from a bass guy last year at this show, and it made a big difference in the action of a lure. So, how does this guy do it? How does that guy do it? if a guy's got a charter business and you can jump on and pay him the money to take you, you're going to learn something, right? And so having these guys around, and again, like Ross said, you might not learn it at the seminar, but when you get on a boat and physically put the rod in your hand, actually let the line out slowly on that, on that drag, and learn a way to applicate some of that technology, I think you become a well-rounded fisherman. And you've seen all these situations like, okay, hang on, last time I did this, it worked for a while, and then this happened, I had to switch to that. And so I think the more we can do that and the more tools you have in your trade, I think you just become a much better fisherman.
I wasn't able to come to the big fish presentation that these guys had. So question for both of you. On average, do you find your bigger class of walleyes comes higher in the water column or deeper in the water column compared to the other class of fish you're fishing around? I know it could vary from maybe month to month, but average. Sometimes you find them higher, or like we're looking for the bigs grinding on that bottom, or do you find them mixed? Or I guess you fish east, you fish west, so let's hear the both. I'm curious on the perspective from both of you on the big fish question.
Well, it's funny you say it because we literally had a lengthy discussion of this, and sometimes when you fish, it's like it's a broken clock. It's right twice a day, no matter what. And sometimes we predetermine what the results are. So I had the guy that started the acoustic telemetry program on my podcast from basically GLaDOS program. And he calls me up one day and he's like, so what percentage of the big fish think are on the bottom? Now they've got about 10,000 fish with tags in them. And they could, based on pressure and a bunch of different things, they can tell where, fish 1, 2, 3 is, and that's a 10 pounder and it's this many. All kinds of stuff, pressure, and they know where these fish are at. They know, like, hey, the females are here, and they're watching, and they can run all these different programs to say, hey, the females are here, and then blue dots, and all kinds of stuff. Getting to the point of it, he says to me, the big fish are on bottom a majority of the time. The problem, though, sometimes is, let's say that's in 80 feet or 30 feet, it doesn't matter. You got a lot of white perch, maybe. Got a lot of sheephead down there. You got a lot of other stuff that all of a sudden, if you're trying to run something, it's tough to keep that bait clean in there or not hooked into something else. And when those big fish come up, because they do, like me and Craig talk, I see them on live sonar now, just catching, running one high line. The problem is it's like a really short window of opportunity, I think, for those fish being higher in the water column. And I feel like back when I started, a lot more tournaments had fish high and one high, and now the water being so clean, the fish are just deeper and deeper in the water column, even really all 3 seasons, even in the wintertime.
And I agree with you too. And you fishing that Western Basin, I mean, what's your average depth? 30 to 40 feet, 50 feet max. I mean, most of that time. So, those fish obviously are going to be on the bottom. Out here, we can fish 150 feet of water, and they can be down with the lake trout. They can be down 80 feet. I mean, I know Pete can attest to this. He's probably caught some of his biggest walleyes down with his trout.
Well, and then let's just say 80 feet even. Like, how many presentations are you going to control fish the bottom at 80 feet and not tangle up or have issues or raking into things? I mean, it starts narrowing down how many rods you can do that and not have a cluster.
Yeah, and we had this discussion too. I mean, Ross, having that data really does help. That scientific data is priceless. But then experience, I've caught some of my bigger fish, 5 feet, 8 feet and up. And so those higher fish sometimes will come up and feed on those little windows. And we've caught some really big fish high. And I know a lot of guys will attest to this. They always have a high line. It may not catch the most fish, but it catches maybe the right fish.
Well, like we talked about, I literally just climbed on a plane, got over here because we were ice fishing. And I brought a fish from 45 feet of water on a jig and wrap up. And I looked over and saw the swivel in my hole. And the fish, I looked over, swear to God, the fish was right there. I literally put my hand down. He's just sitting there staring at my jig and wrap. And we had, I think it was 3 or 4 fish on camera video. It's coming out next week on my YouTube, where I'd never reeled. I worked them up. And then when I finally just did one of these because I knew it was within a few feet, boom, the fish hits, no reeling, just on the ice.
Wow.
So these fish move. Like, I think the one thing we learned with live sonar is that we were always taught fish feed up, and I know that they do. But I've watched them on schools of smelt in the eastern side of the Central Basin, kind of in between you guys a little bit, or a little maybe a little west. And I watched these things crash down 30 feet, hit a school of smelt, and go right back. Mm-hmm. And you're like, no, they don't do that. And it's like, I've watched them do it. And then you start hooking some of these casting at individual fish, and you're like, they're doing things. That's why I don't take hard stands on stuff, because if somebody watches the video and you take a hard stand on something, 10 years later you kind of look like a
You
fool.
look like an idiot.
Technology says you didn't know as much as you think you know.
I agree.
So we got a question here, and I think this is a good one for Pete. The guy says he's an Ontario salmon guy, but his cousin recently moved close to Lake Erie. They want to take the boat for some walleye. What should they be looking for on their fish hawk as far as down speed and temp, transitioning from Lake Ontario to going to fish Lake Erie for walleyes?
Well, it's probably going to be depending on what time of year, but so I'm going to assume summertime, from mid-June till September. So we use a fish hawk to dial in the thermocline instantly. That's one of the first things we do, actually on both lakes, is we know, we'll say how deep we're going to go that day. So we establish the depth with the fish hawk and find the thermocline. So we're going to go down to near that level. Not that you can't catch walleyes deeper, because they'll go down and eat smelt, but just to establish where we're going to start. We establish that with the fish hawk, and we're going to go from there up. We're going to look for presence of bait fish. If the water is very warm, it's like late in the summer, we know a lot of those fish push down towards that thermocline. So those are all clues, but like I said, the fish hawk helps eliminate some of the guesswork, our fish finders do to some extent. So that's one of the first things we do. Back to the mental stuff, we're going to communicate, we're going to go to social media, we're going to follow, in the morning if they're launching the boat, look where the boats go. Look where the charter boats go. If you know some of the well-named guys out of that port, where are those guys going? So those are all easy clues to help people dial in. But knowing what the water temperature is, knowing how far not to go down, drawing that imaginary line with the temperature, and working in that zone are good starting points for someone coming up here.
All right, guys. You wouldn't believe this, but we're like 45 minutes into this. That's how, I thought this has been really easy. You guys have done done a great job. And I think we've gotten a lot of good comments just on the great information you guys have passed along today. So I think a lot of people appreciated it. I'm not going to keep you here much longer. But what I do want to ask you in just a second is, I'm just going to give you your last chance to talk to the crowd and let them know what information you'd like to pass on to them as they get ready for their walleye season coming up. But first, we're going to pick Stephen Connolly as the winner of the swag package, and we'll let Ross lead off here, and we'll just go this way. Just your closing remarks today before we let you guys go.
Don't try to fish somebody else's program. Don't look at a Facebook forum and let that determine everything. I think that people just get worked up with what everybody else is doing, and go out there and put some effort in. I think the biggest thing now is I see these reports. Guys send me screenshots all the time. We kind of giggle about. They're like, "Hey, not driving up to the lake unless it's going to be worth it. So I need somebody to give me coordinates and tell me what to do." And you're like that level of effort. If it was in anything besides fishing, people probably would have a few choice words for it. And just put in a little bit of time. I think you'll have more respect from the guys in the marinas or the different things, and knowing your equipment and having the stuff set up right. I think that if you're gonna fish down in the eastern part of Lake Erie, maybe you're a wire guy, maybe you're a lead core guy, but don't just go out there with mono crankbaits and a couple half-ounce snap weights. Make sure you have the stuff to get where you need to go. And again, the fish hawk thing, I realize this is what we're here talking about, but people all the time with me, they're like, well, but wait a minute, it's how fast are we going? It's a reference point to duplicate. That's the number one thing with the fish hawk that I think I don't really care if I'm going 1.5 or 1.7. If I'm catching and I can duplicate that, that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. I think, for doing this for as long as we have, I'm going to simplify and keep simplifying things, make it a little easier, and not have to make huge decisions and make smaller adjustments, small things. The one variable that we can change before we change a color, a pattern, size is our speed, right? And so I'm going to make more micro adjustments, and I want, hopefully the folks at home to think about, what are the variables that we can control instantly and not have to make huge, go from cranks to spinners to purple to blue. Can we just change the speed real quick to see if that works first before we do the big changes? And so maybe the little micro changes this year. And it's nice to see Steve Connolly. He's out of the Syracuse area, and his son runs real cool lures down there. So shout out to those guys. I'm glad he got that swag pack. So look for those little things.
I probably got three things. One is education. I think if you're the type of guy that says I know it all, I don't need to listen to anybody here. I don't need to go to seminars or watch YouTube videos. I think you're 0 for 1. Okay, we all learn. I learn stuff on the water every day. I learn from other people, and education is huge. And there's things always evolving, whether it's electronics or different types of fishing gadgets or whatever. So, and be positive mentally. Like you should be confident, or have confidence, I should say, and work on the mental aspect of your game. You know, again, having a great boat and all the gadgets and nice reels, that's great, but a lot of times the mind drives your decisions, so work on that mental process. That's doing your homework, that's educating yourself about water, currents, colors, what they do as they move down the water column. That's the whole mental thing, so I'm that 50-50 guy, half mental and half the right process of catching. That's one thing. The other thing is don't rot in dead water. You know, that's my kind of my new logo, or my motto, I should say, is, and I have a logo that says that. But if you're not catching fish, don't be those lazy guys that, well, they're not biting today, I'm going to keep trolling for 3 more hours. Next thing you know, it's noon. Well, let's just call it a day, right? So, you know, if plan A isn't working, bring in your gear, don't be lazy, and go to plan B. You know, whether that's, you know, take a boat ride north or east or west, you know, move your location and don't give up. You know, never give up. So those are probably two things. Probably the third thing is preparation, which we talked about in our seminar this morning. Be prepared. You know you're going fishing this weekend. Spend a few times or a few hours in the evening in your garage. Get your rods and reels locked and loaded. Everything retied. Have your diver leaders ready to go, or your jet leaders ready to go. Have your lures dug out. You know, kind of have an idea what you're going to use to start your morning, right? So be prepared and do your homework before you hit the water. You know, a pet peeve, and I watch YouTube videos. I see guys, you know, making their own YouTube videos. They go out in the water, they bring the boat down to trolling speed, and Bill and Bob are digging through their tackle boxes while that precious morning time period is waning away, and they haven't put a lure in the water for 5 or 10 minutes because they're still find their gear. They're untangling dipsy leaders, all that. So don't be that guy. Be prepared when you go and when you know you're going to go fishing, and have your game is ready to roll. So you're hitting that water and it's on.
Awesome stuff, guys. I knew you guys would deliver, and you did. Great show. I think everybody enjoyed it. Got a lot of good comments for everything, and just appreciate you guys spending some time with us tonight. We got another good day tomorrow booked. A lot of really good guys coming on tomorrow, but appreciate you guys wrapping up day 2 here in a big way. So,
Thanks, guys.
Captain Pete Alex, Captain Craig Sleeman, Captain Ross Robertson, thanks to everybody for watching tonight and all day today. We will see